fake credentials shipped from China into the U.S. Counterfeit FBI and Drug Enforcement Administration badges were discovered among them. The state of Indiana is investigating the Chinese Communist Party's influence in America. Officials there are seeking to protect the state's education system. An elderly couple drowned in Beijing's floodwaters following heavy rainfall. Some are blaming a drainage system failure. A Hong Kong parliament member is casting doubt on a Chinese-made vaccine. His test results show a 90% loss of antibodies that protect against the infection, just 3 months after getting the shot. And Beijing will soon be keeping an even closer eye on China's industry. The regime has already been clamping down on a number of critical sectors in the country, prompting major losses for big tech companies. But what's behind the move? Hello and welcome to China in Focus. I'm Evelyn Lee in for Tiffany this week. U.S. border officers in Chicago seized a number of counterfeit law enforcement badges over the past week, all arriving from China. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, announced the news in a Tuesday press release. The agency seized a total of 9 fake badges, including 1 FBI badge and 8 DEA or Drug Enforcement Administration badges. The parcels they were found in were destined for locations across the U.S. CBP officers say the badges could have led to disastrous consequences harmful to the public. But it's not the first time counterfeits from China have entered the country. Other fake items range from fake currency to COVID-19 related products, including N95 masks. Just last Friday, CBP revealed it had seized thousands of fake vaccination cards this year. The falsified cards come fitted with a CDC logo, and they too are all from China. CBP says China remains the main source for counterfeit goods the agency seizes by far. Indiana's Attorney General is launching an investigation into the state's education system. He's seeking to protect it against nefarious influences from the Chinese Communist Party. Republican Todd Rokita tells talk show host Lars Larson the state's college campuses and its students are at risk. He says he sent a civil investigative demand to Valparaiso University to probe whether the school had violated the Higher Education Act of 1965 or Indiana's Deceptive Consumer Sales Act.
According to filings made by the university at the Federal Department of Education, where the Chinese Communist Party has given over $1 million to Valparaiso for the privilege of operating what we call a Confucius Institute on the campus, that then also goes and sends its hand-picked lecturers and teachers, handpicked by the Communist Party, into K-12 schools around the area.
Some lawmakers on Capitol Hill are also sounding the alarm over the CCP's influence on U.S. education. An elderly couple reportedly drowned in floodwaters following heavy rainfall in Beijing on Monday. Chinese media says the husband was a retired senior official. The couple were driving along a concave road under a bridge built for railways, but the floodwaters ran too high and they couldn't pass through. The outlet said many vehicles were flooded and one was completely submerged. The water level indicator shows that when the incident occurred, the water was about 6 feet high. According to Beijing Daily, the flood is partially a result of drainage system failure. The report says the area's drainage lacked the capacity to siphon off the downpour. The water rose quickly and even manhole covers were pushed open by the backflowing rainwater. A Chinese netizen said it's not the first time the road in this area was blocked by heavy rain, but nothing had been done to increase its drainage capacity. Some lamented, saying they didn't learn any lessons from the floods in Zhengzhou City. Severe droughts are drying up rivers and reservoirs vital for the production of hydropower. This is happening in several countries around the world. NTD's Patrick Hayden with more on that.
Droughts have triggered big hydropower disruptions in places like western US, Brazil and China. This has led governments to rely more on fossil fuels.
We're in the 22nd year of drought, and the lake was about 95% full in year 2000, and now we're at 35%.
At the huge 2,000 megawatt Hoover Dam on the Colorado River, where 1 megawatt can power up to 1,000 homes, production was down about 25% in July. In central Gansu province, China, it's been bleak for some.
There wasn't a single raindrop from the sky.
Also, Yunnan province in southwest China is still recovering from severe droughts from last year. In Brazil, hydroelectric power is the top source of electricity at 61%. Drought recently cut water flows into hydro dams to a 91-year low. The country is seeking to activate thermoelectric plants to offset the drop in hydropower. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom authorized the use of diesel generators and engines. The Department of Energy's Director of Hydropower Research says they're researching how dams can more efficiently store water during rainy periods so it can be reserved for use during droughts. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
Authorities in Shanghai have seemingly invented a new term used to describe test results for the Chinese Communist Party or CCP virus. Abnormal. But does abnormal mean the results are positive or negative, or is the person asymptomatic? Chinese netizens say it's unclear. On Wednesday, a staff member in Shanghai's Songjiang Central Hospital took a virus test. In a statement, Shanghai authorities said the results came back abnormal, but didn't elaborate on what that means. Some netizens criticized the statement online, writing, "If it's positive, then it's positive. If it's negative, then it's negative. Why are you being so ambiguous?" Another said Shanghai really knows how to play games. The term might be ambiguous on purpose, used by authorities to keep public panic in check and to maintain a stable image of China's pandemic situation. The protection given by China's Sinopharm vaccine plummets by a massive 90% just 3 months after getting inoculated. This according to recent tests. On Monday, member of Hong Kong's Legislative Council Michael Tian told the press that he got the Sinopharm shot in February. Then in May, he went to get a COVID-19 antibody test. The results revealed that 90% of the antibody concentration in his body had disappeared. Vaccines stimulate the body to produce virus-fighting antibodies. It's these antibodies that protect a person from infection. When these antibodies disappear, the person becomes once again prone to infection. Mr. Tian took another antibody test just last month. Another 70% of his remaining antibodies were gone. Tian says he worries that by the 6-month mark, after getting inoculated, there will be nothing left. He also questioned Chinese authorities' decision to measure pandemic prevention success by looking at vaccination rate. Because even if the vaccination rate reaches over 80%, many will have already lost their antibodies and immunity against the virus. One Chinese citizen tells NTD she's facing death by starvation. She blames her situation in part on mistreatment and lack of support from Chinese authorities. NTD's Don Ma has more.
A local in central China's Zhengzhou city, Liu Hongxia, is facing a dire situation. Her district is enforcing strict pandemic control measures, and authorities aren't giving her food or other support. This is on top of the flooding that caused damage to her home. Ms. Liu doesn't have an income. This is due in part because she sought justice after the authorities forcibly demolished her last home. To punish her for her defending her own rights, the authorities terminated all her welfare benefits. She and her daughter were thrust into severe poverty. Liu told NTD now she faces starving to death.
The flood disaster caused the water to enter my home. Nobody does anything about it. So far, we have not seen any government relief funds. They didn't compensate me for demolishing my home. I still have to take care of my parents and daughter. I don't have an income. I don't have money. I can't buy anything. We're facing starving to death. I don't have food. I don't have anything. No medical insurance, low-income insurance, social relief funds, nothing.
Liu now lives in her mother's rented home in a rundown community. This community is so poor it hasn't even been named. On top of everything, she could be facing another problem. Authorities could forbid her from traveling because she missed a mandatory virus test.
The government sent text notifications to my phone for virus testing. On the evening of August 16th, around 6:30, I went to go get the virus test. At the gate, pandemic prevention staff told me that the virus testing site had closed already, so I didn't get tested. I predict my digital health code has been changed to yellow. After it's turned into a yellow code, I won't be able to do anything like shopping or taking the bus.
Liu has since made a distress video seeking help. She also hopes international human rights organizations can come to her aid. Don Ma, NTD News.
Private sectors in China are facing an increasingly difficult situation. Beijing is imposing more control and citing a range of reasons.
China on Tuesday made moves to tighten its grip on the tech sector. It published detailed rules aimed at tackling unfair competition and the handling of critical data. Beijing has been seeking more control on internet platforms in recent months. It says they've been abusing market power to stifle competition and misusing consumer information. Regulators have issued hefty fines to companies including e-commerce giant Alibaba Group and social media company Tencent as part of the widening crackdown. Shares in Hong Kong-listed internet stocks slid after the rules were published. They state that internet operators must not assist in the implementation of unfair competition on the internet, disrupt the order of market competition, or affect fair transactions in the market. Specifically, the regulator stated business operators should not use data or algorithms to hijack traffic or influence users' choices. Companies could also be barred from fabricating or spreading misleading information to damage the reputation of competitors. The draft rules are open to public feedback before a September the 15th deadline.
The well-known American investor Cathie Wood recently dumped most Chinese holdings from her funds. This amidst Beijing's crackdown on tech companies, but her firm hasn't completely given up on China. The short video platform TikTok seems to be coming further under the influence of the Chinese Communist regime. TikTok's parent company ByteDance sold 1% of its stake to 3 state-owned companies in April, according to data tech company Tianyancha. This stake is from ByteDance's Beijing branch. The deal also allows these companies to have a seat on ByteDance's board. Paul Haswell, a Hong Kong-based partner at the law firm Pinsent Masons, told to Reuters Beijing is concerned that private technology companies were gaining too much data and too much power. He added the authorities are likely taking bigger stakes in and exerting more control over private companies. And this could make it difficult for Chinese firms to do business overseas. Beijing announces it'll soon be keeping an even closer eye on industry. The Chinese regime has been clamping down on a number of critical sectors in the country, prompting major losses for big tech companies and others. 2 experts give their take on the issue.
The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, is releasing its 5-year plan outline. In an announcement last week, it revealed new requirements for its domestic sectors, including strict supervision. Among the areas slated for closer inspection, national security, tech innovation, and anti-monopoly rules. Frank Xie is a business professor at the University of South Carolina, Aiken. He believes this indicates the communist regime is short on funds.
It's part of a new round of depriving entrepreneurs of their assets. Their slogan is anti-monopoly, but the background is that of Chinese communist regime is going to go bankrupt and run out of money, and it wants to collect from private capital.
Xie says the CCP's second goal is to maintain its totalitarian rule.
The Chinese Communist regime is the largest monopoly of Chinese politics. The CCP's interest groups, the state-owned enterprises, are all monopolies. The regime firmly controls the richest and most profitable enterprises in its own hands. But in this case, they never talk about being anti-monopoly.
Recently, the CCP has been strengthening its clampdown on Chinese companies. It's resulted in huge losses for the companies involved. But will Beijing's new policies reach firms on the other side of the globe? A China affairs analyst says the effects will inevitably reach democratic countries.
Things that lean towards Western values are very likely to be purged by the CCP in the future. There is no doubt that the Western companies that have invested in China will find themselves in more and more difficult situations in the future.
But Xu says Beijing is still trying to hold on to those companies and their profits. So for now, its policies will still allow for some benefits to keep them around.
As China's rich get richer, they're becoming Beijing's next major economic target. On Tuesday, the head of Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, put China's wealthiest citizens on notice. He presented a plan for common prosperity that includes income regulation and redistribution. On the surface, the phrase common prosperity seems to refer to the concept of moderate wealth for all, rather than extreme wealth for just a few. But Beijing often uses it as a slogan to enforce its rule. According to a report from China's official state news agency Xinhua News, Xi says it's necessary to regulate what he calls excessive income and for the rich to give their money back to society. He then suggested taxation or other ways of redistributing income and wealth in the country. But Xi didn't disclose many details about his plan. China affairs analyst Tang Jingyuan questions Beijing's intention behind this regulation. He points out Xi didn't quantify any terms used in that official report. There is no standards for what is excessive income and what is legal income. Tang says the so-called common prosperity is also used as a tool for the Communist Party to maintain power. It's the same phrase former Communist leader Mao Zedong used in the land reform campaign last century. He used the term to take power away from landlords and farmers in China. As a result, many landowners and landlord elites in the countryside were killed. Sinologists say the death toll may be as many as 4 million. And Chinese carmaker Geely is keeping its annual sales target. The company is betting new vehicle launches will offset the impact of the global microchip shortage and a resurgence of the pandemic.
China's Geely Automobile said on Wednesday its first half net profit grew 4%. That was as sales in the world's biggest auto market recover from global health crisis lows. Hangzhou-based Geely posted a January to June profit of $367.2 million. Revenue rose 22%, with vehicle sales climbing 19%. The company expects to sell 1.5 million cars this year. Some analysts said the results were better than expected, with the company having benefited from cost-cutting. Geely Automobile is developing a new EV brand called Zeekr with its parent group. Geely is seeking to become a leading EV contract manufacturer and engineering service provider. It also plans to introduce more electric models in its overall lineup. In June, Geely said it would scrap plans to list new shares on the mainland's Nasdaq-like Star market. That was after it abandoned a merger plan with sister company Volvo Cars in February.
More than 90% of Geely's vehicles are sold in China. The company abandoned a merger plan with Volvo Cars earlier this year. Volvo was originally a Swedish car maker, but it's been owned by Geely since 2010. Geely says the two firms will combine their powertrain operations and jointly develop next-generation EV architecture and autonomous driving solutions. Carlsberg has raised its growth expectations after strong sales in key markets China and Russia. But it says curbs in Asia could affect it. Lucy Fielder reports.
Danish brewer Carlsberg raised its full-year earnings guidance on Wednesday after reporting second-quarter sales above expectations. But severe restrictions in Asia could hit sales, the world's third biggest brewer warned. Beer sales in key markets, China and Russia, had risen to well above the levels they'd reached before the health crisis. But European markets such as France, Switzerland and Sweden remained below those levels. Chief Executive Cees de Hart said in a statement he saw a gradual recovery in European markets, but others, particularly in Asia, remained subject to severe restrictions. Sales between April and June reached 18.69 billion Danish crowns, or $2.94 billion, compared with a 17.97 billion crown forecast in a company-compiled poll of analysts. Carlsberg said it now expects operating profit to grow by between 8% and 11% this year, up from its previous guidance of 5 to 10% growth. Rival Heineken also beat expectations for first-half beer sales when it reported earnings this month, but it warned of rising costs and the impact of the health crisis on Asian markets.
Police arrested 4 members of Hong Kong University's student union Wednesday. They were accused of advocating for terrorism. That's because they paid tribute to a man who had stabbed a police officer and later killed himself. According to local media, the president and council chairman of the student union were among those arrested. They had attended a meeting in July and passed a motion to mourn the sacrifice of the attacker. Hong Kong police previously warned people not to mourn the attacker, calling it no different from supporting terrorism. The Hong Kong University Student Union withdrew the motion under pressure, and some union members also left the group. In response, Hong Kong University severed ties with the union. The arrests are the latest use of the Beijing's national security law imposed on the city last year. That rule bans anything Beijing deems subversion, secession, terrorism, or foreign collusion to interfere in Hong Kong's affairs. More than 100 pro-democracy activists have been arrested under the law since late June. And that's all for today. But before you go, we have a short announcement. We have our premiere at 9:30 p.m. from Monday to Saturday on TV and our YouTube channel. NTD is available on many platforms, including cable TV, satellite, and over-the-air TV across the U.S., and it continues to grow. Please check out ntd.com/TV. Type in your zip code to find all the ways you can watch our show. Thanks for watching. See you next time.